Here we go, full screen. So I want to talk about Turtlestitch and data science together with Susan, and it's about fun with lists and data. Why do I want to talk about that? People talk a lot about tangible data and how to make data more accessible to people. And actually, I can't think of a way that is more tangible than actually embroidering it to a bag or something that I have. So what do I want to do? First, I want to give a short intro about how lists in Snap and Turtlestitch work. Then I want to tell you how to get data into Turtlestitch and Snap. And then I want to give a short demo on what to do with it. Then I'll probably run out of time. Oh God, what have I done? Okay, let's start that again. Then I'll probably run out of time, and then there's time for questions. Sorry. New try. Come on, you can do it. Okay, anyway, maybe I'll try it in Chrome. One last try. If that doesn't work, I will just tell you what I want to tell you right away. Here's my project. Here's the presentation. Oh, here's the strange letter. Ah, wow. Okay, that's way better. That's what I want to do. How do lists work in Snap and Turtlestitch? How can we get data, and what do we want to do with it? What do we what can we do if I run out of time? And then I have some. Then we hopefully have some time for questions left. How do lists work in Snap and Turtlestitch? Wait, let me grab my thing. Lists are functions, which means they report values, and lists are first class, which means that they can be turned into tables, and I can use them in higher order functions, and I can, for example, set variables to them. Here I prepared a little thing to show you. So here's a list block in Snap. This is an empty list which reports nothing. This is the list block, how it looks in the lists category. And now I can add stuff to that list. So for example, I can add a block, or I can add an object. So this is an object, the turtle, or I can even add another list. And I can expand them by clicking on those little arrowheads. And then, as I mentioned, I can also set a variable to lists. Here's a list variable that now contains my block and another list and an object. And of course, I can also add numbers, and I can extend lists by using those two blocks. So I could, for example, say add a number, and I'll add the number 42 in front of my list. So now I got 42, move the block and then another list and the object, or I could use the add block and I could say add something. So for example, a name, let's do my name, Jadga, to that. And then, that doesn't work, wait. Add Jadga to the list, and now my list also contains my name. So those are the two blocks with which I can change values in list or add stuff to them. Here's what a table looks like in Snap. So as I mentioned, we can also do multi-dimensional lists. A two-dimensional list would be a table. So here I made a table in which each element is a person and their favorite animal. So it's Jadga and a wombat. And then I ask Susan for her favorite animal, which is a salamander. And I just pretended I knew Andrea's favorite animals, and it's a turtle. So this is how lists work in Snap. So let's hide that again and go back to full screen. How do we get the data into Snap or Turtlestitch now? We can either create our own data, we can get data from the web, or we can import data from our computer. This is, for example, an example that I'm going to show you in a second, where I created a simple vector drawing program and just added stuff that I've drawn to a list. Here we can see, for example, me pulling data from the Open Weather Map API. And this is a JSON file that I just imported from my computer. And I can do that with JSON and CSVs, and they will automatically be passed by Snap into tables that you can then use to work with them. So that's the final thing I wanted to show you like that. And then there's demo time. Okie dokie. Let's go to the Turtlestitch tab. This is the first project I wanted to show you, and as in any cooking show, I already prepared something for you. This is the program where we can create simple vector graphics, and what I've already done is I created 4 scripts that let me move the sprite around, and the sprite moves around, points into a direction, and then moves a specific number of steps, which I created a steps variable for, and I can set that. So for example, if I set my steps to something real big now, and clear everything again, I can now draw with the bigger steps. Okay, what else have I done here? I added 2 scripts with which I could put the pen up or down. So if I click U, the pen gets up, it gets put up, and now I'm not stitching anymore. If I put D again, the pen will be put down again, and I can stitch. And now I want to have a way to actually store that data and then to resize it or to draw a graphic out of it. To add data to my graphics list, which I also already created here, I can use the add block. I already added an update function, an update broadcast command after each script. And now I want to update the list each time by adding the new point I've just moved to. So I'll add the add here. And what I want to add is here we can think about what would be useful information. I could use the actual coordinates for that point, but then I can scale it anymore later on. So what we actually need is information whether the pen is put down or put up and the direction in which we are currently facing. And that's enough to recreate the drawing later on. So we want to add a list in which the first element is supposed to be the direction we're currently facing at, or the turtle is currently facing at. And the second element is supposed to be whether the pen is down or not. And of course, we want to add that to our graphic. So let me clear that again. Let me reset everything. And then I can see if I'm facing, so right now I'm facing in direction 90. I click up now, and then I'm facing direction 0. The pen is still down, so it's 0 and true. Now let me put the pen up by pressing the U key and moving right. And now the second element of my list is direction 90, which is right, and the pen is up, so it's reporting false here. That's kind of interesting, but we cannot yet do something with it. So what we need now is a second script to create the drawing from this list back again, so that we can then resize it with bigger steps or smaller steps or whatever. So here for that, we create a script which resets our sprite first. And then for each item of our list, by the way, you can get the for each block into Turtlestitch by clicking the file menu and then importing the tools library here. For each item of our graphics list, we want to point into the direction of the first element of that specific item that we're currently looking at. And then we want to move this number of steps. So this happens when I press the R key. Let me try that. Okay, so right now I only took into consideration the first element, so the direction I'm facing at, but let's try if the scaling works. So right now we're moving 50 steps all the time. If I now do 25 and draw my drawing again, I get the same drawing, but it's much smaller. So that's kind of cool. In a second step, we can also take the pen up down part into consideration. So if the second element of our specific item that we're looking at actually is true, then we want to stitch with whatever stitch type we're currently stitching, and we want to put the pen down. If that element is false, then we want to use the running stitch and want to put the pen up. So I'll drop that into here and drop that into here. And then we need if the, basically we can just do if item 2 of item. And now let's check if that works. Okay, I set it to the satin stitch, which I shouldn't have done. Or maybe we can just set the steps to something bigger. Here we go. So now I set the stitching type for the first line I made to the satin stitch in width 20. And for the second line I made, which was the one where I put the pen up, I put the pen up and set my stitching type to a running stitch. So that's basically a simple drawing program that you can create that uses multi-dimensional lists or tables. And you create the data by yourself. It's also cool to actually add a script in which you can remove the last part of your drawing. So maybe I can add some more things. I want to put the pen down again. So here's another thing that I've drawn now. I can click zoom to fit now. And if I press the R key again, I will redraw the same thing with the satin stitch. Okay. So Susan will show you in a minute what else you can do with it, and I will show you 2 more projects that I did real quick. The second one is this one, getting data into Snap via APIs. So here I use the CatFact API. I was actually trying to get some real data stuff, science stuff in here, but I thought, yeah, maybe some fun things that work pretty easily work as well. So clicking on that link gives me back a, clicking on that link reports a JSON file that I can then pass with that split JSON block in Snap, and I get back a table. And here I created a variable about this CatFacts table that I created, and I pick a random number from those from the length of CatFacts. So it's 1 to 231, I think, and then I can. I made this little expression to draw a random cat fact, or to create an embroidery pattern for the random cat fact that I get from here. So this one is the oldest cat video on YouTube, dates back to 1894. Let's do another one. Oh, that's the same one. Anyway, sometimes I get different ones. So you can basically create fun embroidery designs about random cat facts. You need to assign
the random, right?
Didn't I? Yeah, right. I need to assign it every time. Right, correct, Jens. Okay, maybe I made a little mistake in there. You can get different cat facts. That should work. I tried it before. I can send all the projects around later on. So random stuff from APIs. And the last one I wanted to show you real quick is how you can import stuff from your computer. I have a file here, which is called something with Arctic sea ice. Where did I store that? Oh, too bad, I can't find it. Okay, let me check my downloads folder. Ich habe keinen Vortrag. Here. It's the sea ice extent in September. This one I downloaded from a web page, and I can just drag it into Snap, and this is also automatically passed into a table again. So this was a CSV, and I imported it here now, and I get a variable with the name of the file. And of course, I prepared that project before. So here, for example, this data is the Arctic sea ice extent in September, where it's usually the smallest, I think, right after summer ends, from 1979 to 2018. And now I can do stuff with that data. So here, for example, I'm just drawing circles. This is the minimum amount, which we had 2012, and this is the maximum amount we had in 1980. So I can compare this data. Here I created an animation that I also stitched with just lines that have the radius of the sea ice in that year, and you can see that they differ a lot. And here's the exact same animation with circles, And what I really like about that is, let me click zoom to fit here. What I really like about that is actually looking very beautiful, but the data also has a meaning. So for example, here you can see that the 1980 circle that I made here is a lot bigger than the 2012 circle that you can see here, because we are losing significant amounts of sea ice. Okay, so that's it from my side. And now Susan wants to show you one or two more things that she made with one of the projects that I've just showed you, the pixel drawing thing. Go, Susan.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen real quickly here. I'm just going to take you through some pictures real quickly. So Jadga did all the hard work, so I get to have some fun. So let's just see here. Let me just see here. Wait. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go here, here, and I'm going to go to, okay, and I'm going to go, I started with the very, okay. So just playing with lists, and I just wanted to share this quote here. I hold technology as a gesture and as a material for play, much like finger paint or clay. And this comes from someone who's very much influenced my work, Sean Justice, and I put this here. I encourage you to check out his work, which is amazing. So let's make click back here. Okay, so this is just a bird painting that belonged to my great uncle that inspires me. As a young artist, what did I do for money? I made about 35 cents an hour doing embroidery for money. And one of the many kinds of embroidery I did was Danish cross stitch. So I was looking at Jadga's work, and I was looking at Turtlestitch. I thought cross stitch, cross stitch, cross stitch. Okay, here's what I was thinking about back in, I think it's 1974, which I guess is oddly timely now, maybe too. I've always been fascinated by birds and problems of weighing decisions. And then this is a detail of an etching I made, really focusing on texture. This combines dry point and etching and engraving. And so where does that leave me? Well, here's where it leaves me right now today. This is my fire escape, and these are the birds who have become my friends since the pandemic, since it's a little quieter in the city. So this is from my class last year, and what my students have been doing is building code with Turtlestitch digitally and interrupting it with some physical intervention with hand embroidery. And what I think is so beautiful is growing up as a young embroiderer, I learned all the rules, but my students didn't know the rules. So I give them stuff and I think they're going to do something, and they do something completely different, like this or this. And it's been really interesting to see what happens when you mix the digital and the analog world. So give it a second to change here. Okay, so here is what I tried with what Jadga taught us. Here is my list. Here's where I tried going right and left and up and down, see what happened. I'm thinking about that little plant that was cross-stitched. I went to school last week, brought home my machine and some of the threads, and I started to play. So here's my little plant, and here's the little plant. But then oddly, what happens when you start to go back and interrupt the digital with the analog, you start to realize all these X's aren't exactly as neat and in order as I was taught to do cross-stitch embroidery when I was a child, because somehow you may have turned a little or something changed. So the digital is actually messing up my organized analog life, which makes it even more complex. And so I continued to work with a whole batch of birds. And as Jadga showed you, I was able to resize my birds. My plant got a little more complex, and then I messed it up with some hand thread. And really what it's all about is just maybe using all this just to share some cultures and some thoughts. So I always say I share for very selfish reasons. I share to invite you to join us here in this big project that's going on about coding and stitching and lists and teaching computer science through things that allow students to talk to each other and touch things and learn things like learning to sew and sharing cultures. And I said the other day, you know how you see a piece of fabric and you say that would make a good coding project? Well, what we're doing is we're actually doing it. So my little Danish cross stitches are becoming coding projects and explorations in lists. So when the AP computer science class requires us to use lists as projects in the spring and meaningful purposes, well, I think we actually really have some meaningful purposes here. So thank you, Jadga, for doing all that work so that I could play. And thank you, Jens, for all of your work. And thank you, Andrea, for creating Turtlestitch so that I can pull my life together. That's what I have to share. Let me stop sharing. Let's go back. Oh, and also I want to welcome, of course, Huegle is here and Simon is here and so many people here are here right now, and Joachim, who have done so much amazing work that has contributed to this thinking, and we want to keep doing that together. And Cynthia, whose designs are so inspiring to all of us. So please go to the website and join us in this exploration.
Okay, I added the links to all the projects in the chat. The cat facts work now as well. Maybe I just didn't click hard enough. Any questions? And yeah, Nathan, you should definitely get a sewing machine. Actually, I'm really bad at anything with textiles, and I hated it at school, and I love that. It's just plain fun.
And I want to say a sewing machine costs less than one laptop.
I came in late and I wondered, can we get copies of your code?
I just posted the 3 projects in the chat, but I can send them to you via email.
You did.
Yep.
You did put them in the chat. Okay.
Yep.
I just want to thank you both for the presentation, and Jadga, it's just amazing to see how you use the lists concept with Turtlestitch. I really, I'm a bigger fan of your work, and thank you very much for your input. And Susan, the artwork you're doing and the combination of the digital and the analog is really impressive. Mm-hmm. But we talk about that regularly, so you know. Thank you all for joining.
Susan, this is June. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you got started doing this in your school and what it took to do it in the school setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrea shared Turtlestitch, and Huegle invited her to Amsterdam a day early, and I looked at going, and I was not a traveler, and I said, what, embroidery and coding? Oh my gosh, I have to go to Amsterdam a day early, and I went, and I fell in love, and I came back, and I said, I have to do this. I just have to do this. I know my students in my digital photography class had been asking me to teach home ec. And I said, I can do this, but I just can't figure out how to blend it. You know, I grew up sewing and cooking. My grandmother was a milliner. My grandfather was a pattern maker. And I know people need to touch things. They need to make things. I also know that physical computing is more than just blinking lights off and on. Physical computing is the way we interact with the world. And also, we've lost a little bit of that aesthetic conversation about how we interact with the world. What is fine craftsmanship? And what does it mean to make something beautiful, or to change sounds in meaningful, astounding ways, or to move or to dance in a certain way. And so, yeah, so I came back. I had met Fred Wilson, who's a venture capitalist, briefly in graduate school. I went to an event where I knew he was going to be there, and I said, I just launched a Donors Choose for this sewing machine. And he said, that sounds very intriguing. And bless his heart, he went home, he put $300 towards my sewing machine, and my principal actually threw in a small amount, and within a month I had a sewing machine, and the students love it. And just in case you're wondering, there is absolutely no difference between boys and girls. There is absolutely no difference in gender. And I can swear from personal experience that girls know absolutely nothing more about sewing than boys do these days. Yes.
Love the projects, especially the mixing of the analog and digital stuff. Thank you for sharing that.
Do look for Sean's work. Sean Justice is an amazing thinker. And also, you know, those last days before we closed school, when we weren't sure what was going to happen, we did the create task for the AP class completely after we were closed. But what we did do that last week when we thought we were going to be closing school is people sat and they embroidered together and they talked to each other. And it was really quite amazing. It was like the history of making quilts together. And we need to bring that back to students.
Actually, if we have 2 more minutes time, I forgot to share one project that I really love, but takes a lot of time to embroider. Wait, let me.
And while you're doing that, shout out to Jennifer Lynn, who I see made it
yeah.
here, who wrote the Turtlestitch cards on the Turtlestitch website and got me, is the reason I do what I do.
So here's oh, what is happening? Okay, let me do that full screen. Here's a thing that I've did with Jens recently when he started to do all that dithering stuff. So here's a photo of me in the office. And then I converted that with the map feature of Snap into just a black and white picture. And then I drew something over it and set the pen size depending on how bright the picture is at that point. And then I was even, I transported that list to Turtlestitch, and then I was even able to embroider it. You can't really see it, maybe my glasses a little bit, and the back is upstairs somewhere, but I forgot to bring it, but that's actually pretty cool. And I have an Alonso here. I'm not sure if you can see it in that light. But where I did the same thing, it works better with stuff that has a high resolution and a high contrast. But that's actually a pretty fun project, and that's a way to also fill stuff in Turtlestitch, which I was never able to do before. Can you see that? Somehow?
A little bit.
Okay. Anyway, it's the project's also on the Turtlestitch site, I think, if you want to check it out.
Simon, would you say a quick word about bringing the traditional embroiderers of your culture together with your students doing coding? Well, you can, if you're still muted, Simon, but if it doesn't work, please, you can see what Simon's amazing work has been doing in China on the website, and you can in the Netherlands too. And we have so many people in Africa now doing this. My students were working with students in Tanzania, interpreting Swahili, learning Swahili and interpreting textiles there. And you must go look at Cynthia Solomon's patterns, which absolutely inspire us all.
Wait, so someone should share a machine. So I got a not that expensive one. I think it was 500 euros, and it's the Brother M240ED, and I like that a lot. But if you get a little more expensive ones, they have bigger embroidery frames, which is kind of cool. So mine only takes small frames, which sucks sometimes.
Also, we share, Jennifer came last year, I think, and packed up actual embroideries that we sent to people in Africa because we can share the code. So we embroidered it, they chose the colors, and then we videoed and we actually sent them the textiles. So we can share. It's good for our students to work together.
There are hundreds of things left to say, but time is passing, so I think there are just some seconds left, right?
Then see you around, guys.